One of the first checkmating patterns we all fall for is the backrank checkmate. It usually happens in a scenario like this, where you say, oh look, a free knight. And then after rook takes b5, your opponent plays rook c1 and you realize, oh no, my king has nowhere to go. And you realize that this backrank checkmate means you've actually lost the game. Then you take from it after a few times, hey, I probably should give myself an escape square, and you look to do better. But then you fall for a second scenario where you think you've actually created an escape square, and they actually play rook b1 check, and you actually pick up your king, try to put it on h2, and you realize that it actually doesn't work because the bishop is actually covering the square. And so then you can just block with knight e1, and after rook takes e1, it's still checkmate. And this is the subject of the video I'm making today, which is about escape squares. So we're going to talk about how you can actually create an escape square, because it's really quite a nuanced thing. And the rule of thumb that I tend to have is look at my opponent's bishops. My opponent's bishops will determine how I make my escape square. In the next three examples, I'm going to show you how that can actually come into play. So the first one here is a position where white is actually threatening checkmate in one here, and there are actually two ways to deal with that checkmate in one with the pawn, but one is a little bit more sophisticated than the other, and it's this move g6. By playing g6, I not only stop queen takes h7 mate from immediately happening, but it means that I've given myself a dark square where my king is more secure, and since they have no dark squared bishop, this is actually the way I want to do it, because after the queen moves away, I ultimately will be safe indefinitely because there won't be a backrank mate where the bishop is covering. So that's a way you can kind of think about it. Give your king an escape square that's the opposite color of your opponent's bishop. All right, second example here. Again, a queen is basically primed down the h file, and a bishop is logging pressure on h7 as well. And just like the last example, g6 is actually a great move. And the reason it's a great move is because I'm not only defending the mate that was somewhat eminent with g5 potentially attacking my knight, I'm just ensuring that my king has a safe square going forward so that there aren't any backrank issues. Now with this example, you may ask, well, Casa, what about the bishop on c1? They have two bishops, and can't they actually get their bishop to h6 one day and mate you? Well, maybe, but the point is that this bishop on b1 is far more dangerous in the short term, and so if I'm going to decide which escape square to give myself, I'm definitely going to give myself an escape square opposite the more dangerous bishop, whereas the bishop on c1 is going to take a long time to potentially get anywhere near the h6 square. The last example here is also an example from my games, like the previous two actually, but this one I'm actually on the losing side, and I think this one is particularly illustrative because black has already made an escape square. But the thing is, the escape square they made is actually on h7, and that's the same color as my light squared bishop. So instead, in this position, my very strong grandmaster opponent played g6, giving themselves another escape square, but this time on a dark square. And over the next few moves, they even went as so far as to put their king on the dark square preemptively to just ensure that their king is really safe on g7. This is the way you want to do it, folks. When you're thinking about creating an escape square, consider your opponent's bishops. That usually is a way to solve the problem. Sometimes the queen also can be a piece that actually controls the diagonal, and you can consider that as well as avoiding what diagonal the queen is controlling, but typically it is looking at your opponent's bishops. All right, that's it for this one. Take care.